Our latest survey, which we conducted throughout January and February, painted quite a clear picture. People are not satisfied with how EU institutions are handling the main policies that are expected to boost the modal shift. In this webinar, we will look specifically at the components of the greening freight package. Hello. Welcome to the ProMedia Studio One from Rotterdam. My name is Marco Raimondi, and I will be your host for today's webinar titled, Can we fix the greening freight package? Since teamwork makes the dream work, here with me is my colleague, Dennis van der Laan, who will act as my co-host. Hello, Dennis.
Hi, Marco, and also hello to everybody watching.
Dennis will also be in charge of taking care of your questions in the chat. So to our viewers, please feel free to shoot your questions in the chat. Dennis will take care of them, and we will do our best to answer them. If we cannot answer them, we will get back to you with an answer after the webinar. But let's get straight into it by presenting our beloved guest speakers. First and foremost, we have Silvia De Rocchi, Director Coordinator at RailFreight Forward. Hello, Silvia.
Hello. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. And last but not least, we have Ersek, Chief Policy Advisor at UIRR. Hello, Akos.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Good afternoon to both of you, and thank you for joining us. Before getting into the question with our speakers, as I mentioned in our intro, it is wise to explain why we felt the need to organize this webinar. There have been significant developments regarding transport policies in the European Union over the past few months, and even the past few days, we might say. And we noticed a certain discontent in our industry leaders. As I mentioned in the intro, the survey we ran after the beginning of the year painted quite a stark picture on how EU citizens and EU industry leaders feel. And with our speaker, we will assess where we currently stand and what we can hope for the near and long term for the greening freight package. I would say without further ado, let's dive into our questions. Maybe we can first introduce the three components of the green freight package that we will be discussing today. They are the Combined Transport Directive, the Capacity Management Regulation, and the Weights and Dimensions Directive. Maybe let's get things started with Akos. What happened with the Combined Transport Directive? We know that the past couple of weeks and maybe even months were full of news about this directive. Can you walk us through what the recent steps were and what led us here?
Yes, thank you for the very good question. There was the sector was put on a roller coaster by the European Commission, and positively, in positive sense, by the European Parliament. What happened is the Parliament finished its study that it conducted on behalf of the rapporteur, answering 6 critical questions that he needed to start the legislative process. So we were happy. Then came the big dip, the unveiling of the 2026 work program of the Commission, which contains the intention to withdraw the Combined Transport Directive amendment proposal. This was, of course, an unexpected slap in the face. We then scrambled the forces and made our case towards the Parliament first. And the Parliament, at the end of January, came out unequivocally behind the rapporteur. So the Parliament, the majority, decisive majority of parliamentary political groups want to carry on with the legislative work. And it is now under communication to the...
Yeah, so maybe to recap real quick, the current Combined Transport Directive was drafted in 1992, which is 34 years ago.
Yeah. It was published in 92, so it was drafted in the 80s, yes.
Yeah. That's true. It was published in 1992, and now there's a need for renewal on the definition of combined transport, and also to add some clarification, what the combined transport would do is bring about a new definition of combined transport that then would hopefully increase the pool of companies and entities that are eligible to obtain subsidies from their national governments. And maybe with Silvia, you were explaining to us a bit before the call how this would work. Maybe can you walk us through how that would work, the assignation of subsidies in this case?
Yeah, well, there have been these two initiatives from the European Commission. One is the revision of the Combined Transport Directive, but it's also important not to forget about DG Comp that is currently working on a revision of the state aid guidelines and then the regulation on transport to block exemptions. So this is really important because there are two dossiers that are working in parallel. But of course, I mean, the publication of the DG Comp text will have definitely an impact in terms of subsidies and granting what could be from member states the possibility to grant subsidies under some considerable exemptions that might be useful for giving subsidies to combined transport, but as well as to other segments. So this is really important. What I truly believe is that definitely the discussions today remain quite complex. Because in the sector we don't have a common agreement on what the definition should look like on combined transport. Definitely the text is 34 years old, so it's considered quite outdated and needs some kind of revision, that's for sure. But the new definition based on a 40% external cost threshold doesn't find a full agreement within the sector. So now we are in the situation where in the future, in the next months, the EU institutions have to decide if they want to proceed with the withdrawal of the text or to continue working on it. Definitely at national level, we need to support combined transport as one of the most important segments for RailFreight undertakings. That's for sure. But it's a kind of difficult situation for the time being, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely, and probably not only for the combined transport sector. It's quite a period of struggles. And Akos, maybe since URR was on the forefront of this new definition, can you maybe clarify a bit what the new definition that was proposed would entail?
Yes, the community, the combined transport community, was not very happy with the very complicated Commission initial proposal for definition modernization. It's not only the definition, it's also the enforcement support processes that have to be updated. And so what we now propose currently is a distance-based definition where 60% of the total distance covered door-to-door would be covered by the non-road mode, and 40% could be on road, and this would be freely allocated by the operator. And we are recognizing several unique features in member states by proposing three exemptions to this proposal, one affecting environmentally sensitive areas, such as Tyrol, the Alp region. Another exemption is for low terminal density areas where there are not too many terminals, so it's difficult to cover the road legs with the 40%. And finally, the third exemption would address island nations and the populations, the 20% of EU population that lives on islands, and they also have special conditions.
Yeah, thank you for that and for the clarification. And then maybe a question to a bit close up on the combined transport, a question for both of you. What do you hope to see happening now that the European Parliament decided not to abandon the amendments anymore? What are the hopes for the future? Akos, if you want to take it over first.
I thought Silvia would take it,
Well, thank you, Akos. Well, it's really important is that regardless of the legislative path that it's chosen, the priority should be for member states to come up with a coherent and pragmatic plans for combined transport. What it really matters is that any future framework, legislative or otherwise, really tackles the sector's real bottlenecks and deliver tangible modal shift result. And so this is what my hope are, independently that what will be the decision of the institutions about withdrawal or not. It's there is a lot to do regardless the revision of this directive to support combined transport at national level.
Yeah, so European cohesion between member states and a special eye for the sector, listening to the sector, that would sum up your answer, I think. Yeah. And Akos, do you want to share your 2 cents as well?
In practical terms, we already have a positive response from the European Parliament that they want to continue working on this directive and to find a solution, legislated solution. We would like the member states to do the same in the council. And then both parties, with interacting with each other and perhaps with the sector, they can find a solution and finally put this legislative work to rest.
Yeah, and maybe this is a bit of a harder question, but do you have maybe a timeline in mind for when we can expect some more concrete developments?
Well, the Cyprus presidency informed us with, of the intention to raise this question to the member states. So I hope the member states will give their answer still in until June, which is the end of the presidency. And then the Parliament rapporteur will begin his work any week now, and then the next month even. So it's not improbable that the first reading can be concluded by the end of this year in both European legislative houses, the Council and the Parliament.
Yeah, so it will keep our representatives busy, this directive. And then moving on to the second pillar of the green freight package, which is the capacity management regulation. What is its current state?
Okay, Silvia, yeah, go ahead.
Well, the capacity management regulation is, we have now a text that has, Akos was saying yesterday, it has to be approved, it has been published on the official journal, so, but definitely we have a text. Well, the full practical application is foreseen to be in December 2031. The full application, something can be started in this year, so step by step. But we expect the full implementation in December 2031.
And the capacity management regulation will basically create 2 new platforms: the European Network of Infrastructure Manager and the European Railway Platform. Can you maybe walk us through the differences between the 2 of them, and why is it important to have a strong European Railway Platform as well?
Well, the European Network of Infrastructure Managers, the name is the alliance of all European infrastructure managers who will work together in a harmonized process, and the users will be brought together in the European Railway Platform, and the users will provide feedback or input to the way ENIM establishes itself and conducts itself as we go forward. So in the next few years, very important input has to be given to the implementing work.
Yeah. So as we said, we are just waiting for the official publication in the Gazette of the European Union, and then it will be officially official, let's say. And how can we ensure that because the European RailFreight Platform, as you said, will represent parties that are not infrastructure managers, and it has been said that for some time infrastructure managers have enjoyed some maybe a privileged position. And what will be the role of the ERP And how can it make sure that all the voices are heard and not only the infrastructure managers?
No, it's really important, as you said, it's really important that ERP is set and as was agreed by Forum Train Europe, that will have will have his role in the creation of the ERP, and it's extremely important that we are going to have this ERP that it's open to any interested party in a way that they are applicants, of course, to counterbalance the power of ANIM, which is extremely important because at the end we are in a relationship, the clients and provider, and we have just one infrastructure per country. So it's important that whatever decision is taken at any level, they also take into consideration the point of view of the users of the network, because that's really key. And as we said, the RFF and also together with other associations, we truly believe FTE will do a great job by creating the DRP, and we are there to support FTE in their job to build up this platform.
And maybe can you explain to us a little bit why do we need the ERP? Because we talked also a little bit yesterday in the call of to prepare for this webinar that sometimes there's issues when it comes to cancellations or delays that are not a fault, that it's not a fault of the operator, and then sometimes there's significant amounts of money that are being lost, and that does definitely not help the industry.
Well, the ERP is in the first years before the full implementation of the regulation, will be busy with consulting and advising the processes that are designed in ANIM that will deliver digital timetabling for the yearly timetabling process, as well as the capacity allocation on the TCR. And once the functioning begins, then of course ERP will be the platform that collects the input, the feedback from both authorized applicants and service facilities towards and channel it to the leadership of ANIM to make sure to have a kind of parallel to the RUG and TUG meetings of the RailFreight corridors. This is how I can most easily explain. RailFreight corridors will cease to exist. They are merging into the European transport corridors, and the ANIM and the new structure under the capacity regulation will take their place.
Yeah, so basically it's a matter of instead of having, I believe it's 9 or 10 now RailFreight corridors, it will be one more coherent European infrastructure, ideally.
Infrastructure network, yes. It will be one coherent infrastructure network.
And Silvia, you mentioned that the full implementation is hoped to achieve by 2031. And what could the first steps be? Do we already know what the first steps of the implementation of the regulation can be? What do we start with?
Well, there are a lot of things that can be done, and I see very positively the new regulation, because for the first time I see that freight is really taken into consideration in the regulation, in the capacity management, and also there is a knowledge by EU decision makers that it's really different as market freight than passenger. We have freight business that more than 50% is cross-border, so it has different needs from the passenger sector. We depends on our clients' requests. So that's really important. I'm a little bit, I see that the execution is a little bit at risk, because the success of the implementation will depend on the member states and infrastructure managers that at the end will have to do their job at national level. And one of the key concern is about the penalty system. And also the fact that being able to provide a quality path because this is the first priority for rail freight undertakings, is to have a path of good quality, and also to have alternative paths when the first choice was not available, is not available. And the penalty system, my fear is that they kind of provide a cap to an infrastructure manager and to their responsibility, basically. So we have to be really careful on how the regulation will be implemented at a national level, because when a rail freight undertaking has agreed on a path, and then they receive from an infrastructure manager a short notice that the path has been cancelled, the penalty, you can have whatever system you want, a penalty system in place, but at the end, the damage that you get due to the cancellation of a path, it's far higher than any kind of penalty system that is in place with the infrastructure manager. It's a reputational damage, but it's an economic damage and financial losses. So we have to be really careful about preserving the capacity, especially for cross-border, good quality path, and then really cancel paths as last resort, I would say.
Yeah, so we need the resilient infrastructure with alternative routes that are up to the standards, up to the needs of the operators, and then a fairer compensation mechanism. Moving on to the next, and maybe the one that had the most recent developments, pillar of the Green Freight Package, which is the Weights and Dimensions Directive, which actually yesterday there were a joint statement that included both RailFreight Forward and UIRR. What is its current state of this? What is the current state of this regulation? Akos.
Yeah, the regulation, there was the Danish Council presidency delivered the general approach of member states. The parliament position was known for already more than a year. And right now, the so-called trilogue is taking place between the three European institutions to find a common ground, a compromise solution. And we issued a statement together that provides a direction, kind of advice on what mix of choices to make in the from the different positions to be serving or to be compatible with the needs of intermodal rail freight and rail freight in general.
Yeah, because maybe for our readers, it's also good to clarify the Weights and Dimensions Directive would bring in basically extra weight and extra room for trucks, so that cross our roads, which might hinder the compatibility with rail and still hamper the current state, which is already a little. It's not in its best days of rail freight. And
I do have a question, if I may interrupt, an audience question.
Shoot.
From Boris Ganaliuk. For whoever wants to answer the question, to what extent do increasing technical parameters of roads transport, so we're talking about higher weights and dimensions, undermine the competitiveness of rail? And does this expose structural inefficiencies in current rail-based intermodal systems? Maybe we can hear the opinions of both.
Yes, I would love that.
Well, I believe that the real issue with any kinds of weight or dimension or technical parameter change on road is the need, or comes from the need for these different modalities to work together. And what we have to make sure, because in the marketplace there's competition, and competition is natural, and each mode has its strong suits and weaknesses. But what we cannot allow is an outcome that does not enable the two modes to work together, continue working together. That can isolate certain segments of the market towards, let's say, road transport, and this diminishes the competitive capabilities.
Yeah, and I mean, I have read the joint statement, and I'm sure that most of our readers did as well. But maybe Silvia, you want to highlight you want to walk us through the joint statement and see what were the proposals that I believe up 20 associations between national and international associations suggested in this joint statement.
Even more, because we had almost 30 associations, and this is really great. And I'm really thankful for all the support showed by the associations, not just by RailFreight associations this time, but also transport safety associations. That's really positive. And it's important to highlight, in my opinion, is that we are not against road transport. But we are not against even the fact that if road wants to become greener, of course they are absolutely they can absolutely do it. Who are we to say that they shouldn't? That's for sure. But it's really important that we don't forget that, yes, with road we compete, but also we work together, we cooperate, especially in intermodal transport. And what we don't want, that this is used an opportunity to open the gate and allow the introduction of EMS, because this is a completely different story. It's not about zero emission vehicles and increasing the weight at 44 tons for zero emission vehicles, but it's something more. It's using this opportunity to introduce longer and heavier trucks that will be completely create distortion of the market. And so what we have been asking to the institutions is definitely to have an ex-ante and ex-post impact assessment. We know that there are some member states that already allow EMS, so pilot projects. So we understand that there is this need for these member states to kind of have a framework. But on the other hand, without an ex-ante and ex-post evaluation, I mean, it's kind of opening the doors to the introduction of EMS everywhere. Of course, as long as the member states definitely agrees on the circulation, that's for sure. But we need to somehow evaluate before introducing this kind of EMS. As a citizens, I would like that the introduction of EMS would be assessed before opening the doors to their introduction. And also ex-post evaluation. It's not that after 5 years of trials, then they are automatically approved to circulate on European or on the network, on the road network. So it's important, and also we have to really bear in mind that we need compatibility with intermodal transport. Otherwise, why are we focusing all our resources on increasing the rail market share? But if on the other hand, we are kind of hitting one of the most growing markets, which is intermodal transport. So when we do things, we also need to not think about in silos, but also having an integrated perspective. I also, sometimes I hear, but not so frequent, about talking of logistic. This is something that is really important, extremely important. Rail is just one of the actors, of the stakeholders involved in a transport chain, so we don't have to forget it. If we create standards that are not compatible with rail, what are we doing?
Yeah, because exactly the introduction of EMS, which stands for European Modular System, which would be this. They're also called gigaliners, so these massive road vehicles would not only hamper the problem would not only be on the rail infrastructure, correct me if I'm wrong, but also there could be problems at terminals that might not be well enough equipped to handle bigger loading units. And then, as you said, without specifications, they might just decide to deploy bigger diesel trucks instead of what we hope for, which would be using the extra space and weight to implement a battery and shift towards electric vehicles or zero-emission vehicles.
Yeah, so if we talk about terminals, it's important to know that the access routes of the terminals are frequently in urban environments where the circulation of these long and heavy trucks may not be permitted. So this would this would prevent these trucks to approach even a terminal. Then there's a second problem, parking such trucks and maneuvering such trucks on the premises of terminals, which are not designed, were not designed and are not built to handle these kind of trucks. So what the legislator needs to make sure is that all EMS combinations adopted are compatible with the infrastructure. And then the second issue is if you have the type of EMS combination where the tractor is integrated with its superstructure, that will never be compatible with intermodal. So we have to make sure that only those EMS combinations end up being authorized that are suited for intermodal compatibility or guarantee intermodal compatibility.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. So we see that it's not only a problem, and then another. There's also maybe to better understand what the impact of this, the deployment of this vehicle would be. There is also, which I believe is a RailFreight forward-led initiative, is the weallpayfor.com as well.
Yeah, exactly. So last year we launched a campaign when this dossier was in the discussion at the council. And so we decided to launch this campaign, highlighting our key concerns, which includes, of course, safety, and which we all know that what are the risks with regards to introducing such bigger trucks. And also we have the topic of road infrastructure. So we are, from one side, spending a lot of money to improve the road network. And then on the other side, we are about to introduce EMS that will create a lot of damages on the road. And just to think about, for example, Italy. Italy is different from the Netherlands, that's for sure. So you can imagine how many bridges, how many tunnels, and will have an impact by the introduction of EMS. Factories, terminals are not on the highways, but are on secondary roads. So how these EMS are going to reach those places. And definitely also with regards to dangerous goods, we talked a lot with Akos about the fact that rail is transporting the majority of dangerous goods, and it's a key actor by delivering those goods in a safe way. What about having EMS running through towns and among cars? Transporting dangerous goods. I wouldn't feel safe, honestly, to have this kind of EMS allowed to run everywhere. So the image are quite impactful. You can see them on the website, but those are the real concerns that we as citizens, not representing just the RailFreight sector, we really believe has key concerns.
Yeah, definitely. So still quite a bit of work to do hopefully quite a bit of work to do on the weights and dimensions directive. And I mean, we touched a bit. It seems like there's similar obstacles to all three. So it's about the member states having a clear and cohesive approach to these things. It's it's also the sector itself. The various parties in the sectors finding agreement. But maybe a final question for the both of you is, why is it sometimes it seems so complicated to adopt effective and efficient rail freight policies or intermodal policies in the European Union?
Well, each member state has its own national peculiarities, and they all want to adopt the suitable policy that sort of meets these conditions. And so we agree it's difficult to formulate a harmonized, homogeneous European policy. Therefore, while accepting this reality, the suggestion that we have is to formulate a European information portal for freight transport that would contain all these national choices and all these national peculiarities to make the life of organizers and operators of freight transport easier going forward.
Silvia, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, national interests, I would say, and budget constraints as well. Even thinking about that, unfortunately, in the capacity regulation, there is no obligation for member states to allocate funding for in a 5-year time to dedicate to the upgrade of the network. So you have countries that, for example, have a plan from now to 5 years' time, countries that have a plan of works in 1 year, 2 years' time. So it's really fragmented. And that, of course, doesn't help. And rail is still considered as a national matter. It's lacking of the European approach. Probably because the passenger sector, which is, I would say, the sector that it's most relevant for policymakers, is still a national matter. So there is this difficulty to change mind and think about that. RailFreight is a completely different story from passenger. We have different needs. We respond to different clients. So that's I think what it's really not definitely helping the sector, the national approach and the national interest that overcome the European one, I would say.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mentality. Let's say that the mentality is a bit of an obstacle, both the fact that member states sometimes try to bring water to their own meal, possibly rightfully so, even because they still have to protect their national interests. And then also the fact that, yes, rail, since probably most of the people think about passenger trains where we talk about rail, and that, yeah, it's still a largely national business. I might add, unfortunately, as an expat, because I would love to have also international better passenger connections, but that is a topic for a different webinar. I want to thank both our speakers for the interesting insight that they provided. Dennis, do we have any more questions from the chat?
We do have some questions. Yeah, I want to repeat that if you do have a question, you can send them to me in private chat. I will go through some of the questions now, and we'll see what Silvia and Akos have to say.
Yes.
So let's start with a simple yes or no question from Robert. Do EMS drivers need a special driving license? And if I may add my own question to that, does it change the calculation about the weights and dimensions directive in any way for you? Maybe, since Silvia is on screen for me, Silvia, do you have any thoughts about that? Do they need driving licenses? And if yes, does it change anything for you?
Well, I know that definitely the EMS introduction was to kind of overcome the shortage of drivers. That's for sure. And there was also in discussion about the possibility to lower the age of the drivers to be able to drive those EMS. I think that that won't change with the new directive.
Yeah, the driver's license directive is currently under revision in the European Parliament and the Council. It's a very controversial legislation, but it does not contain a new category for longer vehicles that are longer than the currently maximum permitted 18 meters 75. This is quite problematic, because there should be a new category not only for driver's licenses but also for tolls, the road tolls, because it's logical that a longer, heavier vehicle should pay more toll, but this is completely missing from the legislation.
Yeah, but this is this would have to be included in the driving license regulations, not in the weights and dimensions.
No, and but there could be a related amendment in the weights and dimensions, and also for the tolls, that would be a Eurovignette topic. But again, this is typical in European legislation. When you adopt legislation on something that affects other pieces of legislation, they can do a related amendment, just a one-line insertion or one paragraph insertion, and this has not been done.
Yeah. Any more questions?
We do have more questions. We have a question from Stefano who asks, how will the capacity regulation help with the revival of the wagon load services?
Yeah, it's a single wagon load service.
Yeah, we're talking single wagon load service, yeah. Akos, do you have any thoughts about this?
Well, single wagon is not a business for intermodal, and I'm speaking mostly for intermodal rail freight, so I would pass the question to Silvia.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, definitely the capacity new capacity regulation will have an important impact on all rail freight segments, including single wagon load, but then it will be up to, we know that there are some member states that are quite supportive of single wagon load, or the member states that are not. So at the end, we will see with the implementation of the regulation at national level how the different market segments how the member states will react.
Yeah, maybe we have time for one last question from our
Yes, I was also going to propose the same thing. One last question. This refers back to the combined transport directive that we discussed earlier. Is the low payload to total mass ratio of all current rail-based intermodal systems recognized as a structural limitation? You can tell this is a technical question.
Very.
And are there any initiatives to address it? And I think that this question may be suited for Akos.
Well, it's a highly technical question indeed. The loading capabilities are in the standards for both the loading units, the wagons, the infrastructure, also for the road vehicles, so weights and dimensions, the trailers. And the harmony has to be ensured throughout the entire system. This also includes waterborne vessels, by the way, because they also need to be cleverly, the load planning has to be cleverly devised so that the balance of the vessel is maintained. So there is no technical detail in the directive itself, because these details are in technical standards, mostly ISO standards, but there are also EN standards, European standards that are applicable, and these are independent from the weights and from the combined transport directive.
All right. Hopefully that answers it. But maybe we don't want to get too technical, especially since we are approaching the end of our webinar. Then again, I would like to thank Silvia, both Silvia and Akos, to take the time to participate in this webinar. It was, as always, a very insightful and pleasant conversation. I would say we say goodbye to our speakers. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And before we finish off, we have a few RailFreight.com things to talk about. I would start with maybe our upcoming event, the European Cargo Experience.
Exactly.
What can you tell us about it?
I can share that we are organizing a new event, which is indeed called the European Cargo Experience. It's a joint event with our sister publications, World Cargo News and Project Cargo Journal. It will take place on 6 and 7 May in Gdansk in Poland at the Mercure Hotel. As part of the event, we will organize a side tour to Baltic Hub. The event will focus on terminals. And Marco, maybe you can share a little bit more about the program, since you've been more involved in organizing it.
Yes, I have been working on creating the program, which is still shaping up. But yeah, I would like first and foremost to say that it's always nice to go to Gdansk. It's a lovely city. We were there last year as well. And it will be nice to see how Baltic Hub has developed in this past year. Since last year, we went to see it a few days or maybe weeks after its inauguration, the T3 terminal. About the program, as you said, yes, it will be all things terminal. The event will take place on 2 different stages. We will have stage 1, which will focus on digitalization and, for example, the standardization of how data can be shared safely, efficiently, and in a manner that satisfies all parties. And the second stage will rely most on automation, will revolve more on automation. So we will talk about more the operational side. We will have crane operators, crane manufacturer, terminal operators among our speakers. So those two big, let's say, macro topic under which we will dive more specifically into different topics. You can find more information that gets updated whenever there's updates on EuropeanCargoExperience.com. And since November, I believe, we had the European Silk Road Summit, a new RailFreight event means a new edition of our wonderful RF magazine, which you are coordinating, Dennis.
Exactly, yes. We're working on the second iteration of our magazine, and in line with the event, we'll have a focus on terminals. We have some pieces that highlight some market developments, some new terminal developments, and how those go together. And on top of that, we will pay specific attention to industry leaders. We have some interviews lined up, some insights from those people. I won't give away too much, but we're set for an interesting edition, I would say.
Indeed, let's keep some suspense. So if you want to get your hands on the printed version of the second edition of the RF magazine, you can do so at the European Cargo Experience. Little side note, if you want to get your hands on the first edition of the RF magazine, you can do so at RailTech Europe, where we will also bring some copies with us, which is taking place next week. I want to say 4th and 5th of March, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
In Rijden Utrecht, here in the Netherlands. So also, if you want to check that event out, feel free to do so, and please, we will be there to welcome you. That was it for today. Thank you all for tuning in. The webinar will be also posted on our RailFreight.com YouTube channel for those who unfortunately had to miss it. Thank you very much, and until next time.